Hello folks, this is a lecture on instance group. So what is an instance group? An instance group is a collection of virtual machine instances that you as an individual can manage as a single entity. VM instances are created based on the instance template that you create. Some of the uses of creating an instance group is that it helps in auto scaling. So let's assume that you have a virtual machine which crosses a particular CPU threshold. And if that happens, then you can auto scale and add new instances to that instance group. You also can do auto healing. So what that means is, let's suppose your virtual machine stops functioning properly based on a health check that you provide. Then if the health check fails, then your virtual machine is again recreated. And the other important thing is it acts as a backend to your load balancer. So instance groups in GCP are of two types. One is the managed instance group and the other one is the unmanaged instance group. The managed instance group can be further classified into two types, the stateless and the stateful. The stateless managed instance group can do the following. It can do auto scaling, auto healing, auto updating, and can act as a backend for a load balancer. The stateful can not do auto scaling, but what it can do is it can do disk or metadata preservation. So what that means is, let's assume that your virtual machine goes down. Then when the new virtual machine is created, the new virtual machine will contain all the data that was existing in the previous virtual machine instance. And the third kind is basically the unmanaged instance group. So this doesn't support any of the features of the other managed instance group. However, it just acts as a load balancer, and all the heavy lifting of creating instances or auto healing has to be done manually here. So these are the three kinds of instance groups. I will give you a demo on the stateless and the stateful instance groups. So let's proceed. Thank you. Okay, the first thing we will do is we will create an instance template in US Central. After that, I will copy this startup script which installs Apache 2 and creates a index.html with a hello world. So let me create the instance template. I will choose the lowest configuration, so N1 micro. I will allow HTTPS access, and I will just copy this startup script and paste it there. And the other thing I will do is I'll go to the networking tab and choose the correct subnet, which is in US Central 1. So that's about it. So I will click on create. So this does not create a virtual machine instance, but what it does is it creates a template or a blueprint which can be used by the instance groups to create the virtual machine. So once this is created, let me go to my instance groups. So the first thing I will do is I will create a stateless instance group. So I'll just choose the default name. The location can either be single zone or multi-zone. So if it's single zone, then all the virtual machines that are created will be in this particular zone. However, if you want to make it highly available, then it's preferable to choose multi-zone. Then you have to choose the instance template that we just created. So that's instance template 1. And then we choose the auto scaling. So the auto scaling is currently based on the CPU utilization. So if the CPU utilization goes above 60%, then it starts creating new instances. So the minimum instance is 1 and the maximum is 10. So let me make this as 4. So what happens is if the overall CPU utilization initially goes above 60%, then it starts creating more instances till the time the average CPU utilization goes below 60%. However, because you've set a maximum of 4, so after 4 instances I've created, and then even after that, if your CPU utilization is above 60%, it doesn't go further and create more than 4 instances. The other important thing is the auto healing. So the auto healing is basically used by the instance groups to create new instances if an existing instance is unhealthy. So how do you check whether an instance is healthy or unhealthy? So that check is based on the health check that you create. So let me just create one new health check for you and show you how it works. So you just give a name. So what it does is it basically checks in a particular interval on port 80 with a TCP protocol and sees whether it gets a response. If it gets a response, then it's considered healthy. If it doesn't get a response, then it's considered unhealthy. So the check is done every 10 seconds, and for every check, if there is no response that is received after 5 seconds, then it's considered unhealthy. For an instance to be healthy, it has to have 2 consecutive healthy checks, and if there are 3 consecutive unhealthy checks, then the instance is considered to be unhealthy. So these are the defaults. You can change it based on your preference. So let me click on save and let me create. So as you can see that the instance group has created one instance. So the first thing we will do is we will see whether the auto healing capability of the instance group works. So for that, what I will do is I will log into this machine and I will shut down the Apache server, and that will cause the instance to turn unhealthy because the health check will fail because the Apache software has been switched off. And after that, what should happen is it should automatically recreate another instance and terminate this current existing instance. So let's see whether that happens. So let me just stop this Apache service and let's wait for the instance to turn unhealthy. You can see that the IP address is ending with 60. So once a new machine is created, it will have another external IP address. So you can see that it has turned unhealthy. So hopefully in a minute or so, there will be a new instance created and that should have a healthy status. So after the health check failed, the instance group was able to create a new virtual machine and it's currently in the healthy status. So the next thing we will do is we will check the auto scaling functionality of the instance group. So what I'll do is I will run a stress command that will cause the instance to cross the 60% CPU threshold, and that will hopefully spawn new instances. So let me just log into this new machine. So let me install an application called Stress. So once that is done, I just need to run a command called so hopefully this will cause the CPU utilization to cross the 60% threshold and new instances will get created. So let's look into a console and see whether that has happened. So you can see that new instances are getting created. So it will create a maximum of 4 instances. It cannot cross that particular threshold. So let's just wait for this to come up live. So all the instances are up. So this is how the auto scaling functionality works in the instance groups. So let's just delete all these instances. So you can just click on delete groups and it'll delete all the instances within this group. So the second thing we will do is we will create a stateful instance group. Let's see how that is done. So for that, you can just click on the second tab. Everything remains the same. You have to still choose a template. So I'll choose the instance template one. And here I have to specify whether I want the boot disk to be stateful or not. So for this, I'll just click on this. And how many number of instances do you want? So this will remain constant. So for the time being, I'll just put it as 1. So there will always be one instance always present. And the health check is again the same. I'll choose the previous health check. And let me just create. So it has created that one instance. Let me just log into this. So there is no concept of auto scaling here. So it's still verifying the health checks, and it will probably take a half a minute more for this to come online. So the stateful instance group is currently up. So what I will do is I will SSH into this machine. So once I'm logged in, what I will do is I will obviously restart the Apache machine, but before I do that, I'll just create a file called ABC. And once I restart this machine, or once I stop Apache and once a new machine is created, that machine should also have this particular file present. So let me just stop the Apache service and let's just wait for it to recreate again. So let me just close this. So hopefully this will turn unhealthy and it will create a new instance. So as you can see that it has turned unhealthy. So let's wait for a new instance to get created. And once the new instance has been created, let me just SSH into this machine once more. And if I do an ls, you can see that that file which I had previously created is still present. That's how the stateful instance group works. It maintains the previous changes that have been made to the disk. I hope this was useful, and if you have any doubts, please don't forget to get in touch with me. Thank you.